Coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios, this is Prime News on SABC 3 and in your top stories at this hour.
And the fact that they would be... Sorry, Commissioners. I was hit on the head with a firearm.
In an emotional moment at the Madlanga Commission, the head of media and public relations for the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Police Department, Lieutenant Colonel Kilebogile Tepa, broke down as she recalled the July 2023 incident where a gun was pointed at her.
I don't want to hand over to an empty chair, but the empty chair will be there.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will hand over the G20 presidency to an empty chair as the US has decided to boycott the event.
This unfortunately sounds like something very sinister. This is not the first flight. This is the second flight. We only knew about the second flight after we heard from the relatives of the first flight.
And President Cyril Ramaphosa says the decision to allow 153 Palestinian nationals into South Africa was driven by compassion, but their status is still under review. A very good evening to you and welcome to Prime News on SABC 3. My name is Becky Mutumomolete, your host for this evening. Global events are shaping the landscape. Let's take a look at the news that are making headlines tonight. And here are your leads. The Madlanga Commission has heard how an EMPD spokesperson's handling of the Blue Light saga that directly implicated the now suspended acting EMPD police chief, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, allegedly led to a stern warning being issued to her in the form of an assault. This as the Commission continues to hear of the extent to which the elements of criminality allegedly engulfed the city of Ekurhuleni and the subsequent casualties that followed the shield that was allegedly given to Mkhwanazi.
The list of casualties following the alleged lawless reign of the now suspended acting EMPD police chief, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, continues to grow. This as EMPD spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Kilebogile Tepa, took to the stand and detailed how her handling of the Blue Light saga that directly implicated Mkhwanazi led to consequences, as well as the centralization of communications to the office of the city manager.
Commissioners, when the initial inquiry came to me and it had made reference to Mr. Vusimusi Ket Madlala, I didn't know the gentleman from a bar of soap. I only got to learn of him as things transpired within the city and South Africa in its entirety. But above all, the fact that communication would be restricted in one office, then that just gave me the shivers in saying that what exactly is at play here.
Tepa testified that an incident followed which she believes is directly linked to her handling of the saga, alleging that the incident, which was an assault on her, was allegedly a stern warning being issued to her. The Commission heard that in July 2023, Tepa was attacked by 3 men who approached her vehicle and cocked their gun on her neck.
Initially I thought, yes, a knife that's going to slit my throat, only to discover that that is a firearm.
Meanwhile, the Commission reached a sensitive stage when a new witness took to the stand, Witness D. Witness D was giving evidence on an issue that has been placed before the probe, that is the murder of a shop owner and disposal of his body in a dam by alleged members of Mkhwanazi's unit, allegedly through Mkhwanazi's guidance, who allegedly arrived at the scene of the murder and instructed the team to throw the suspect's body into a mine shaft or dump it in a dam. Witness D confirmed to the Commission that he was tasked with the disposal of the body in the case, which was previously described as an alleged extortion gone wrong.
As he said this, he looked at me. Viandre then in turn informed me that I must take the body and dump it. They will show me where and that I should relax. Since my vehicle is marked, Viandre said it won't attract any attention.
The hearings continue. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Pretoria.
SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
Johannesburg is scheduled to host the foreign dignitaries at the G20 summit in Nasrec on the 22nd and 23rd of November, while the Sandton Convention Centre will host the B20 on the 19th and 20th. This means a number of roads in the city will be affected. The national routes that will be affected include the N1, M1 and N12. The Road Traffic Management Corporation has advised that a number of routes will be subject to closures, lane restrictions and intermittent disruptions for security and traffic control purposes on the 15th of November, being tomorrow. Motorists are advised to plan ahead and use alternative routes.
Of the operations, it's between 9 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, where we'll be having these rolling road closures across some of these roads in the city of Johannesburg. But to reassure our residents and motorists that the closures will be periodic. This is to allow the operations to move past, and once the operations have passed those certain routes, and then the roads will then be reopened. And of course, we do have alternative routes for our motorists navigating through the city of Johannesburg. If you are in the Roodepoort area, you can either use Beers Nadir Drive, Christian de Wet Road, or Dirkers Road instead of Hendrik Potgieter Road. You can also use Main Road, Cedar Road, and Witkoppen Road in 4 ways to avoid Winnie Mandela Drive. In the Sandton, Rosebank, and Parktown area, you can use roads that are parallel to Jan Smuts Avenue, Oxford Road, and Rivonia Road. This is routes just like Caller Drive, Sandton Drive, and 11th Avenue.
Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa will hand over the G20 presidency to an empty chair. This as the United States of America, tasked to take over its presidency, has decided to boycott the first G20 leader summit on African soil. Ramaphosa also touched on his instruction to allow a group of Palestinians who arrived by plane yesterday to enter the country without proper documentation.
On for the G20 summit without the United States of America, according to President Ramaphosa. In about a week's time, South Africa will host the summit with over 40 heads of state present, notably in the absence of US President Donald Trump or American delegation, and President Xi Jinping of China.
I have said in the past, I don't want to hand over to an empty chair, but the empty chair will be there. Probably symbolically hand over to that empty chair and then talk to President Trump and say, even though you are not here, I am now handing over to you the reins of chairing or being president of the G20.
150 Palestinians were allowed entry into the country yesterday despite not having proper documents. Ramaphosa says it would have been inhumane of the country to send them back to suffer the war crimes committed by Israel.
We obviously need to look at the origins, where it started, the reason why they've been brought here. And ordinarily we would have said they should go back because they didn't have any documentation. But out of empathy, out of compassion, and because they are a people that we as South Africa have raised our hands to support, we felt that we should accept them and process their matter.
The gift of the givers has, in the meantime, provided them with shelter. Samkele Masego, SABC News, Kliptown.
In related news, the gift of the givers are amongst the groups that have since reacted to the country's hosting of the Palestinian refugees.
This unfortunately sounds like something very sinister. This is not the first flight. This is the second flight. We only knew about the second flight after we heard from the relatives of the first flight. This seems to be a coordinated effort from Israel to carry out a process of ethnic cleansing. A lot of them in the first plane didn't even know where they were going to. They paid a huge amount of money. Their clothes, medical supplies, hygiene was all taken away from them by Israel at the border. And then, of course, there was no exit stem. So when they get to a foreign country, they are further embarrassed and further put into difficulty, like what happened in South Africa.
I think education should be carried at two fronts. One is domestically, that this is a government of national unity, whether it is speaking with one voice or not, given the fact that our foreign policy is under ANC, while the Home Affairs is under DA. We need to understand whether there were any implication based on that or not. At the second front of investigation is to the circumstances in which they left. Whether the Israelis' allegation made by other NGO bodies that claim it was a deliberate move, whether that is true or not.
Government needs to do better at communicating important developments such as the unexpected arrival of a group of Palestinians into the country yesterday and the ongoing preparations for the hosting of the G20 summit. This is according to ANC Secretary General Fiki Limbalula, who spoke from Germiston, east of Johannesburg, where the party's National Executive Committee is meeting over the next 3 days.
You want government to explain that here is a group of people, 130, arriving at OR Tambo, the Palestinians and all of that, how were they processed, what happened? Border management is an agency of government, and they will explain their procedures, that we gave them forms to sign, and that is it. It ends there. But you need a political leader of this government who have voted. Even in the GNU, where is Schreiber? Explaining what are the laws that have been followed to accept the Palestinians in this country. Where is the Minister of Home Affairs?
SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
Coming up after the break, a wage agreement has been reached between airline FlySafair and the SA Cabin Crew Association. We also bring you more on the Finance Minister's medium-term budget policy statement. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to Prime News on 3. A wage agreement has been reached between airline FlySafair and the SA Cabin Crew Association. This brings the almost 2-week-long industrial action that resulted in the employer locking the workers out to an end. FlySafair says that the signed agreement is a 4-year wage increase of between 6 and 6.9% and a guaranteed bonus of 7.5%.
It's been a marathon of engagements at FlySafair, with the CCMA roped in to mediate wage talks under Section 150 of the Labour Relations Act. The SA Cabin Crew Association, the largest union for cabin crew members at the company, threatened to strike, accusing the employer of approaching wage negotiations in bad faith.
There is quite a few benefits that we believe we can still negotiate, and which we will, starting from next week with the Department of Health. We call this one Phase 1. Phase 2 will be looking at things like your overtime, Sunday pay, lunch hour pay, maternity leaves and payments during maternity leaves.
The union says it has since made concessions as they move to accept the tabled 4-year wage agreement. The airline initiated a lockout for workers, a move that dragged on for almost 2 weeks. Chief Marketing Officer Kirby Gordon says he's hopeful the signed wage agreement will stabilize operations going into the festive season and the G20 World Leaders Summit.
We're very pleased to confirm that we've reached an agreement with our cabin crew union, which now brings to an end the recent labour dispute. Operations have been fully stable throughout, and we're grateful for our teams who've kept things running so smoothly.
The work lockout has since been lifted, with FlySafair cabin crew members back at work. Katlego Logodi, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's medium-term budget policy statement was further interrogated today by members of Parliament serving on 4 different committees. Appearing before a joint meeting of the Standing Committees of Finance and Appropriations, as well as the Select Committees on Appropriations and Finance, Godongwana was asked about the announcement of the revised inflation target in Wednesday's statement.
The Finance Minister's announcement of a new inflation target of 3% was a move that was expected. But in the meeting with Finance Cluster Committees, he explained this decision was not anti-poor.
There's a mistaken economic argument, an assumption in this economic argument, and that argument is that inflation targeted, but of necessity, will generate higher interest rate and therefore higher cost. Which is a problem, because what we have said, currently things stands, in inflation is hovering around 3%. We're just reinforcing that.
Deputy Minister Asho Sarupen gave assurances about how this decision was taken, and he denounced theories suggesting it was influenced by outside international forces.
Well, the conspiracy theory was first peddled in the Sunday Times that the minister had gone to the United States recently to meet with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, who changed his mind in the inflation target. That is inaccurate. The minister, in fact, did not travel to Washington. He had delegated me to do so. And in that time, I can also say the following, in full disclosure to Parliament, that JP Morgan we did take a meeting with them.
Sarupen said even though Goldman Sachs did reach out, he held no secret meeting with a multinational bank to discuss South Africa's inflation targets. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
The ANC, through its legal representative, Advocate Gavin Marriott, has told the Supreme Court of Appeal that its main case against the MK Party is about contravening the provisions of the Trademarks Act, as it enjoys the right to the goodwill of the name and the logo of Umkhonto weSizwe, which is a symbol of the party. The ANC is appealing the April 2024 High Court judgment, which dismissed its application with cost after it sought to prevent the MK Party from using the name and the logo.
Is of the view that the Electoral Court does not have jurisdiction to determine the trademark infringement, hence it approached the High Court.
From that date, the 24th of November, I wasn't involved, but the ANC understood. Listen, we're barking up the wrong tree. We're in the wrong place about this. They launch in the right, which is that the ANC actually had a choice. It could have gone the electoral route, because it had an earlier registered name with the electoral bodies.
The MK Party told the Supreme Court of Appeal that the ANC waived its rights to oppose the matter when it failed to appeal the Electoral Court's decision.
It didn't challenge the dismissal of its appeal by the IEC. And that's why we say it acquiesced, it waived its rights. It then accepted, oh well, it is what it is. MK will continue, and so on, and it folded its arms. Until the 16th of December, when President Zuma made an announcement that he is now going to vote for MK, then it woke up again from its slumber, and basically now wanted to challenge that which it had preempted, and I'm using that word loosely as well. In other words, the appeal at the IEC was preempted by the ANC.
Judgment has been reserved. Makhala Masideng, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
We have reached the final frame of tonight's broadcast, but the conversation continues. We wish you an incredible weekend ahead. Remember to keep ahead of the curve. From myself, Becky, and the team, it's good night. Your weather forecast is up next. Take care.
Thank you very much and a very warm welcome to the weather desk. Now let's take a quick look at what to expect in our weather details for this evening going into tomorrow. Clear skies expected in the Eastern Cape, but isolated showers and thunder showers expected over parts of KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga into the Free State, Southern Gauteng, Limpopo, as well as parts of the Northwest and Northern Cape province, but scattered into the northern regions of the Northern Cape and parts of the Northwest. Tomorrow, rainy conditions expected across the country. 80% chance of showers expected from KwaZulu-Natal into the Eastern Cape, all the way through into the central interior, as well as the northwest and northeastern parts of the Northern Cape. Scattered as you move into central Eastern Cape, into parts of the Free State and the Northern Cape, as well as a 60% chance there in Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and parts of the Northwest. With that, a 30% chance expected over Limpopo, Mpumalanga, as well as along the south coast of the country and adjacent interior. The western parts of the country can expect clear skies ahead of tomorrow. We do have some weather warnings for tomorrow. Severe thunderstorms that are orange level 5 over the central parts of the country, into the northwest and northeastern parts of the Northern Cape. Yellow into parts of Gauteng, the northwest, as well as Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal into the Free State, parts of the Eastern Cape and the eastern parts of the Northern Cape province. Please be on the lookout for those severe thunderstorms ahead of tomorrow. Overnight temperatures expected to remain fairly cool for most parts of the country. 17 in Bloemfontein, Bethlehem 14, Johannesburg 15, 19 in Durban, George 14, Sutherland cold with an overnight minimum of 7. Maximum temperatures to remain fairly warm for the northeastern parts. 33 in Messina, 26 in Pretoria, 24 in Joburg and 26 in Durban, 22 in Gqeberha. Sutherland will peak at a maximum of 25. That's all from the weather desk.